It started with the envelope, thick, cream-colored, arriving on a Monday. My daughter, Chloe, found it in the mail pile. "Mom, look! It's from Uncle Leo!" Her voice was a melody of anticipation. My brother Leo, the architect, whose taste was as impeccable as his career was soaring. My son, Jake, hovered as I slid a finger under the flap. Inside was not just an invitation, but a production. Embossed lettering on heavy cardstock, a detailed map on parchment-style paper, a QR code linking to a curated gift registry. Leo and Anton cordially invite you to celebrate the grand opening of their architectural masterpiece, The Airy, and their 10th anniversary. Black tie. Adults only. "Are we going?" Chloe asked, her 10-year-old eyes wide at the fancy paper, her fingers tracing the raised lettering. "Adults only, honey," I said, my voice feeling strangely tight. The phrase felt like a cold stone in my stomach. "But we helped," Jake protested, his face crumpling. "Uncle Leo said I was his best helper when we visited the site. I held the ladder. He said I had steady hands for the dream." He was right. 6 months ago, when the house was just skeletal beams clinging to the cliffside, Leo had brought us up on a blustery Saturday. The kids had worn tiny, personalized hard hats he'd bought them. They had supervised as he explained the cantilevered design defying gravity over the sea. "Our little foundation inspectors," he'd laughed, ruffling their hair. "This house is for family. You're part of its story. We'll christen it together." The memory, once warm, now felt like a lie. I pushed down a knot of hurt. It was a black tie affair. Of course, kids weren't appropriate. My husband, Ben, was less diplomatic that night over a tense dinner of uneaten spaghetti. After all the free babysitting we've done for them, the weekends we had their neurotic dog, adults only for a house he told our kids they helped build, he put his fork down with a finality that echoed. Classic Leo. All sentiment until it clashes with aesthetics. He wants a magazine spread, not a family home. I called my brother the next evening, seeking a loophole, a reassurance. "The invitation is stunning, Leo, really." "Isn't it?" Anton outdid himself. "You're coming, of course. It won't be the same without you and Ben." "We'd love to, but the adults-only part? The kids are pretty crushed. They thought they were part of this." A pause. The soft, familiar clink of glass in the background. Probably his artisanal espresso cup. "Mia, it's a formal evening. Champagne, delicate canapes, fragile art installations. It's no environment for children. It would be stressful for them, for us. We'll have a family barbecue later in the summer, I promise. This is the unveiling." The later felt like a brushed-off footnote, a consolation prize. I told the kids, framing it as a boring, fancy grown-up party. Chloe's lower lip trembled. "But he promised we'd be the first to see it finished." Jake just looked at his hands, silent. That quiet, profound disappointment was worse than tears. The week of the party, the family group chat buzzed with logistics. My mother asked if I needed her to watch the kids. "They're not invited, Mom." Her response was a single frowning emoji, then silence. My aunt chimed in about parking. My cousin asked about the dress code. The exclusion was a ghost in the digital room, acknowledged by its conspicuous absence. The night arrived. Ben and I dressed up, our fancy clothes feeling like a costume of complicity. We dropped the kids at a friend's, their forced smiles breaking my heart. "Have fun at the boring party," Chloe mumbled into my coat, not letting go for an extra 3 seconds. Jake just gave a stoic soldier's nod that was far too old for his face. The Airy was, admittedly, a breathtaking spectacle of glass and light, hovering over the moonlit ocean like a frozen wave.
Leo and Anton greeted guests like royalty at the entrance of their fortress. My mother fawned over the minimalist fireplace. "Leo, darling, it's a triumph. So elevated." She didn't meet my eye. The first 30 minutes were a blur of air kisses and brittle conversation. "Where are your adorable little ones?" asked a colleague of Anton's. "Oh, not this kind of party," I said, my smile feeling painted on. "Ah, a real night off. Lucky you," she trilled, moving on. The knot in my stomach tightened. This wasn't a night off, it was an exile. Then the speeches. Anton took the mic, glowing with pride. He thanked their visionary interior designer, their patient landscaper, and finally, our incredible, rock-solid contractor without whom this dream would be literal rubble. Mark Barton of Barton Builders has been a pillar of strength. The room erupted in applause. A stout, smiling man in a well-tailored tuxedo raised his glass. I froze, my champagne flute halfway to my lips. The bubble suddenly tasted acidic. Ben leaned close, his whisper a low, dangerous growl in my ear. "Mark Barton, Barton Builders." I felt the blood drain from my face. A year ago, Ben, a structural engineer, had spent weeks of his own time, late into the night after his own demanding job, helping Mark Barton salvage Leo's overambitious, potentially unstable initial design after the first engineer quit. He had done it as a favor, refusing payment because family doesn't charge family. Leo had called him a literal savior, a genius. Anton had sent a lavish thank you hamper.
And now, the contractor was being publicly toasted on a stage my children were deemed unfit to stand upon. Ben's name wasn't even a footnote. I saw Ben pull out his phone, his thumbs flying over the screen with a chilling focus. He was not scrolling social media. He was working. He caught my eye across the crowd, his expression calm but utterly devoid of its usual warmth. It was the face he reserved for incompetent developers who tried to cut corners on high-rises. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. The next 20 minutes unfolded in slow motion. I watched Mark Barton check his phone, his smile fading. He frowned, excused himself, and walked toward the glass doors to the deck, pressing his phone to his ear. His body language shifted from celebration to crisis, a hand on his hip pinching the bridge of his nose. He returned, beelining for Leo. Their heated whispers were a visible force field cutting through the gentle hum of chamber music. Leo's head snapped up, his eyes frantically searching the crowd until they laser-locked onto Ben. My brother's face cycled through confusion to dawning horror to a pure, unmasked fury that twisted his handsome features. He stormed over, ignoring a guest trying to clink his glass. "What did you do?" he hissed, low enough that only Ben and I could hear. Ben took a slow sip of his mineral water. "I made a phone call to the city's Building Standards Commission, to Greg Sanderson specifically, regarding some creative interpretations of the seismic code I just casually re-examined in your open-plan living area, the one with all the single-pane, non-tempered glass overlooking the fault line. A formal, surprise review can be such a headache for a contractor's reputation, and their insurance premiums can take months to sort out. You're having our house red-tagged on our opening night? This is our home." "No," Ben said quietly, stepping slightly closer, his voice dropping to a tone that was lethally calm. "I'm ensuring the house my children were promised was part of their story is actually safe. It's what I do. You celebrated the builder. I'm just reminding you and him who did the actual thinking that kept those pretty walls standing. You used my family for free labor, my professional labor, and my children's emotional investment. Then you edited us out of the final picture.
That's a structural flaw. This is over a party invitation? This is petty, Ben. Petty and vicious. This, Ben said, his voice finally cracking with a raw, paternal emotion that made my own eyes sting, is because you made my children feel small in a house they were proud of. You taught them that promises are conditional on aesthetics. That's not a lesson I'm willing to let them learn. The inspector will be here at 9 a.m. Barton knows. I suggest you have your paperwork in order.
Leo stared, speechless, his gaze darting between Ben's resolved face and my own, where I knew he saw no ally. He turned on his heel and fled back to Anton, who was now watching with pale-faced dread. The drive home was a thick, heavy silence. My phone, in my lap, became a strobe light of familial fury. First, the texts from Leo, escalating in panic. Then my mother's demands, my father's grave warnings, a voicemail from Anton, his voice a shrill warble about insurance and public scandal. Ben ignored the vibration of his own phone in the cup holder. I finally said, "They think it's about the party." Watching the dark, endless ocean blur past my window. They think it's about being slighted. It's about the foundation, Ben replied, his hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel. He built this beautiful thing on a foundation of using people, taking our time, our kids' admiration, our support, and then discarding what wasn't useful for the glamorous reveal. A house, a life, built like that. It might look perfect, but it's unsound. It won't weather the first real storm. I just pointed out the crack in the plaster. We took our exit. The familiar, modest streets of our neighborhood a soothing balm. "Tomorrow will be ugly," he said, not with fear, but with certainty. "Your parents will pressure you. Leo will play the victim. They'll call me a monster. I know. I need you to be ready, not just to support me, but to hold the line for Chloe and Jake. This is the part where they try to make us feel crazy for defending our own." I reached over and took his hand, lacing my fingers with his. "I'm not bending. Not this time." I saw their faces. We pulled into our driveway. Our safe, cluttered, deeply lived-in house was dark and welcoming. He turned off the engine, but the silence now was different, charged, united. "We don't answer tonight," he said. "We sleep. We see our kids' faces in the morning. That's our compass. That's all that matters." As we walked to the door, my phone buzzed one last time. A final text from my father, the patriarch's ultimatum. "Your mother is in tears. Leo's life's work is under attack. Anton is devastated. Whatever your grievance, you have crossed a line that may never be uncrossed. You will fix this tomorrow, or you will be making a choice about your place in this family, permanently." I showed it to Ben under the yellow glow of the porch light. He read it, his mouth a firm, unyielding line. He took the phone from me, his thumb moving decisively. He handed it back and unlocked our door. I looked down at the screen, at the message sent to my father. From me. Our place in this family was called into question the moment you decided my children weren't part of it. The line was already crossed. We're just defending our side of it. Good night. We stepped inside, closing the door firmly on the glittering, fragile world of the Airy. The lock clicked into place with a satisfying final sound. The coming storm would rage at dawn, phones ringing, accusations flying, a family fracturing along its oldest, weakest fault lines. But for these next 20 minutes, in the quiet dark of our own strong, loving, and sound home, we stood together on unshakable ground. We had already won what mattered.